What is up, everybody? Welcome into Chris and Company. I'm Chris Castellani. Interview coming up today with Kelly Keegs. Intrigued about this one. This is what, when it comes to the Barstool personalities, this is what I want this show to be. I want it to be an open forum where we can learn about the people at Barstool, but also we will address what has been some controversy that probably by this point has died down a little bit. But look, if you guys aren't aware of it, it's available on YouTube. You can find all the stuff, the Barstool drama that happened. Basically, Kelly and Francis took over Barstool Radio. It did not go well. Dave canceled it. I'm going to talk to her about all that, but I don't want to, just recap the entire thing. I just kind of want to get a vibe check, see where she's at, because it seemed like she was going through it for a minute. I'm the last person who should be psychoanalyzing people, but I'm chronically online. So, yes, we will get to that. But before we do, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Same applies for Rumble. Let's get those watch hours up. Go to the link tree in the description for this video, and there you will find the links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, whatever platform your heart desires. You can listen on that. And if you want, continue to subscribe and leave a positive review. We've gotten some excellent feedback on... Sorry. I just ate. We had some excellent feedback on Apple Podcasts, which I really appreciate. So yeah, we'll be back for the recap at the end here. But for the time being, let's get to our interview with Kelly Keegs. Chris and Company, episode 8, joined today, as we said, by Kelly Keegs. When I put the word out there that we were going to be doing this show, we're two very polarizing figures in the Barstool world, it seems, right now. Kelly.
It seems to be, especially right now.
Yeah. I don't know what people expect out of me, but I guess in a way that's good. If the bar's low, that means we're definitely going to clear it, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way to put it.
I can't imagine what the expectations are, but yeah, I mean, as long as we're sitting here on a microphone, what's the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I have control of the edit as well. So if I screw up too bad, I can cut it.
There you go.
I was telling you before we recorded, as I often do, did something of a Kelly Keegan deep dive. So it's because I was telling you, I've been here almost 3 years, and I know the personalities, but I feel like I don't necessarily know the people. Like you guys were always just here when I arrived. So I was doing kind of looking at your background. High Point University graduate. Am I correct with that?
Yes. Go Panthers. They're doing okay they're doing okay in basketball right now. They always are they usually enter March Madness and then lose in the first round or something. But I heard that they're really good this year. I kind of, I would like to show a little school spirit. That's really the only opportunity I get to. But yeah, High Point in North Carolina, far away from home for me at the time, intentionally. And it was a blast. It's the whole school is like a country club, so it felt like I was on vacation for 4 years. It was great.
Where you said you were far away from home, where are you from originally?
New Jersey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
you saw like an 8-hour drive.
Wow. You drove back every time, never flew?
For like longer trips, so Christmas I would drive home, summer obviously drive home, but for Thanksgiving and stuff I'd fly up and down quick. It was a very quick flight, and they had easy round trip flights from Greensboro, which was cool for me and easy for my parents. So yeah, I saw them just enough.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, I saw you were a communications major, which was my major in college as well. You graduated, I did not. But did you was your plan to always do something in media?
Yes, I was a marketing major, communications minor, but it was blurred a little bit because marketing wasn't a major when I started at High Point. They only made it a major halfway through, but I was doing marketing courses, so I was able to combine the two of them. And yeah, I always wanted to be in media. I always wanted to, either work at E! News or Fashion Police or something like that. I'm someone who likes attention, so it felt like the easiest way to be heard. And I think that growing up in a house where both of my parents are very funny people, and they're also very we're all extremely dry, sarcastic people. and we like troll each other a lot. It's like that kind of vibe. And so, I would be telling stories. I'd be going off when I was a kid. My parents would be like, "Oh, I'm bored. Like, stop. Whatever you're talking about, I'm bored." And so I think that I've just been chasing the high of needing someone to listen to me ever since. So yeah, that's I was
I
always trying to do it.
I totally understand that vibe. It's actually interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I didn't realize it, but I grew up watching a bizarre amount of E-news too for some reason. I was just like,
Hmm.
for some reason, I was on one of those Twitter pages of like kids of the 2000s, and one of those posts was up there, and I'm like, yeah, I can bizarrely remember this.
It was like
I
the
w-
only thing. Like if you wanted pop culture anything, E News was it. Like
yeah.
especially in like the 90s, early 2000s, like there was nothing else. Like the internet really wasn't popping off at the time, so you had, it was appointment television usually.
Was Joel McHale's Talk Soup on E-news?
Yes, it
Okay,
was.
yeah, I thought it was
One of my
because that
favorite
was
shows of all time. I
yeah,
love
well,
that show. I
that
miss
was
it all the
kind of
time.
that was kind of like internet before the internet type of thing, where it was like that
Totally.
predated Tosh.0, which took internet clips and put
Mhm.
them on television, where that took like kind of a weekly roundup of television and it showed them off and talked about them.
Mhm.
I was looking through your LinkedIn page, and
Oh god.
I saw. I'm not going to go through every single thing. Don't worry,
You can go through whatever. Yeah, I
but
don't
I
care.
saw
And it's
a
it's like,
little
I'm
bit.
sorry they did all this research on me. This is like
No, I was happy
it's
to
so
do it.
boring.
No, I trust me. I need to find ways to occupy my time. But I saw the one thing that stood out to me: a little under a year working for Simply Bunk Beds. Did you did you did you
Yeah.
sell bunk beds, or were you in a different department?
So for when you go to school in High Point, North Carolina is the furniture capital of the country. I think people say of the world. I don't know how true
Wow.
that is, but every year, twice a year at least, they have these furniture expos, these massive like conventions where people come and like wholesale buyers will come and like look through all these things and buy bulk furniture. And it's all the big furniture brands like Raymore and Flanagan's down there. Like everybody goes. Steven Singer, I think, is one. Or no, Steve Silver is one, but so is Simply Bunk Beds. And when you are a student at High Point, a lot of they take advantage of the students' availability to do, to help run the showrooms or help with little tasks or whatever. So and these jobs are hard to get. They pay it under the table. You could make like $1,000 in a week. It was awesome, and you get to go to like all of the cocktail hour, happy hour, party things that they had every single night, which were cool. All these people would come in like from all over the place, and like the bars would get overrun by these like furniture people, and it was just interesting. It was all like middle aged like men and women, like on some kind of retreat. It was crazy, but um, that was one of the companies that when market would come around, I was able to get a job during market, and that was the company that I worked for, like during these expositions. So I think I worked with them 3 times, and it was a lot of fun. It was, everybody's from the South, real like respectful, and they were super nice to me. And I basically just worked the front desk for like 2 weeks and made a lot of money. But
I had
so
no
yeah, I
idea.
threw them on my LinkedIn. I said, why not?
Yeah, I had no idea about that. High Point being the furniture capital of the United
They
States and maybe
have
the
in
world.
High Point, if you are driving down like one of the main streets, they have a massive dresser. It's like the size of a building, with like a sock hanging out. It's like to signify like this is the furniture capital. It's kind of ridiculous, but it was, it's a running joke with me and all my friends, and not turning down free money and free booze at night. So why not?
I feel like that's a piece of information KB would know about High Point being.
I bet he does know that actually. I
Yeah,
feel like I've maybe discussed it with him before. Like we might have had the conversation. I'm not sure, but maybe.
it wouldn't surprise me. But so
Mhm.
then, you're in North Carolina for a few years. When and why did you make the decision to head to New York? What was the job?
New York, I always wanted to live in New York. That was before I went to college, like my whole life. I always wanted to live in New York. I went to school down south because I wanted to go somewhere different that I wasn't going to live. And I was like, I'd like to experience a different part of the country. I've only ever lived in New Jersey. And I got a good taste of it. I made a lot of amazing friends. Most of my best friends are still from down there from college. And but I know now, like I would never live in the South. Like it's just not a place I vibe with. I'm much more a New York girl. And so I just kind of took any job I could to get to New York. Like that was my goal. And my first job that I got was right after I graduated, like 2 weeks after. I found a job on Craigslist for an events manager at this company called Guest of a Guest, which still exists. And it would like have a calendar on it that listed out all of the events happening in New York City that you could go to. And it was for like the social scene and like people who wanted to get in like the senior parts of New York and go to like fashion week shows and things like that. So I was in charge of finding these events to put on our calendar. And I also worked with photographers because we wanted to send photographers to these events to cover them and take pictures of them to then host them on our website. And so I worked there for like a year and I was paid like basically nothing. I might as well have been paid $0. And it was a 2-hour commute each way. And it was worth every minute because I got to be in New York. Like that's all I cared about.
Do you feel like, because so many people that come to Barstool are not from the New York area. I mean, a lot of them kind of are outsiders. Do you feel like in a way it was an easier adjustment period to Barstool for you because you had been around New York so often, you were comfortable in the city?
Yes, I don't think that that New York played a role in it for me at all. Like it was Barstool fit into my New York life, if that makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't really the other way around. But I was friends and working with people at Barstool for a long time before I started working here full time. So the only difference I would say when I started working full time was that feeling or needing to figure out that feeling of like, okay, I work here now and I'm allowed to be here and I like they want me here. I'm not just like hanging around trying to get a job or something. Like they've hired me and it's okay that I'm in the office and I don't, I don't have to explain why I'm here. I just am here now. And that took me a while to kind of to feel like I belonged, like I deserved it or something, after trying to get in for so long. And and I would say, as far as like New York goes in relation to that, I think I just got really lucky that they opened up a New York office. They could have opened up, you know, they have the Chicago office now. They could have done that first, and none of this would happen for me. So I feel lucky that it was New York first.
So you were never going to leave New York then, basically?
No, and I still won't. I like wouldn't. I love it here so much. New York is a part of who I am. I think
Mhm.
more than any like job or place I've ever been. It's just New York's always here for me.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So I'm in, let's see, what was it? 2016, you started Wine with Kelly.
I did.
Where the inspiration for that come from? Was it just an opportunity to talk pop culture, or where were you at?
So Wine with Kelly came about after I want to say 2015 is when I don't know if you know this, Chris. Do you know that I am plain breakup girl? I am
No,
the
I did
girl
not.
who live tweeted the couple breaking up on the plane. That was
Oh,
me.
that one. Okay, yes, the
Yes.
live. Yes, I do
And
remember that. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
and
yeah.
so I don't bring it up often anymore because it's weird to be like, yo, do you remember that like one
Is
viral
that how
tweet?
you got
But
hired?
no, that
Okay,
was I was friends with everybody at that time, and
okay.
which is I think had a lot to do with it going as viral as it did. Um, and but that was at the time where like when something went viral on Twitter, you got a lot of followers, and
Yeah.
and it it was crazy. They printed it in the New York Post. I like have the paper. It was a crazy crazy time. And once I got that following and that attention, I was kind of uh, encouraged to do something with it. And I was like, what could I do? Podcasts were hot at the time. The name Wine with Kelly kind of always floated around in my head. The play on like whining, complaining. I'm a big complainer. Everybody knows that. And so it just kind of fit in as an outlet to talk about pop culture stuff, but to also, take advantage of the situation I had got myself into.
Were Did that traction that came from that going viral become overwhelming at all? I mean, the fact that it just kind of went, you just posted one tweet and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
like, it's in the New York Post and everything.
A little bit. It's different now because if something goes viral now, you can kind of ignore the noise because things go viral all the time. Back
Yeah.
then, I was really new to it. It was super cool at first. Everybody was like really excited about it, thought it was a funny thing, was like, "Oh my god, these people are crazy." Like didn't really say much about me personally. And then I would say like 2 days after it all went down, I started getting people being like, you're a disgusting person. This was invasive, other people's privacy, whatever. Somebody called I worked at a, at a company in the financial district at the time, and somebody called them and was like, this person works for your company and they're a shit person. You need to get rid of them. And I had to have a meeting with this CFO who was like, listen, we got this phone call and it's fine. And I know that like it's the internet, whatever. I don't like agree with all of this, but like make sure you keep the company name off of your like social stuff. And that was pretty embarrassing. I was like, I don't even know what to say. Like I was dicking around on Twitter and now I'm in a meeting with the CFO of this company because it's like, they called him up personally. It's like so embarrassing. So that was a nightmare. But apart from that, it wasn't anything crazy. People were tweeting at me things like, I hope someone live tweets you crying at your Nana's funeral, like shit like that. But now, I get that kind of hate every day now. So it
I was
really
gonna say,
doesn't.
so I mean, in a way, did that kind of thicken your skin, so to speak, for
Absolutely.
what was to come?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Uh,
Nothing will ever be as big as that for me. So like as much as people
hmm.
want to come at me and like do whatever, and yeah, I'll get like salty about it when I'm like feeling misunderstood or something, but nothing will ever be as big as that plane breakup situation in terms of like an onslaught of internet attention.
It's so bizarre because, like, I've
It's
seen you do so
crazy.
much content, and it's like the idea that, yeah, that's just one that this one tweet thread was the one thing that, but I
It's the
get it
one
though.
thing people still talk. It became a meme, like now
Yeah.
it's a meme. It's still everywhere. People will still send it to me. Like they're like, "Oh my god, this popped up." They actually used it. I had a lot of people. I don't know what school, but they were using it as like an example of social media and like classes and stuff. That was pretty cool. I was like, this feels exciting. And someone wrote a book about like it's called Shame Nation, and it's about like people shaming people online for the way they act in public, basically. And they used me as an example, like a negative example. That was kind of crazy. But I have the book, like my name's in it. It's
Yeah.
still cool.
Maybe it's just the generation we grew up in, but I just expect if I go out in public, there's a chance like somebody has like, don't make a scene. I don't know. I don't.
No, I agree. I agree. I think acting up in public is insane. Like, especially now. Like, I don't know. Unless you're doing it purposefully, I don't think that there's any need to be like over the top like that. Especially if you're like filming it or whatever. Then everybody knows you're just doing it for attention.
Especially when it involves airplanes or airports. I feel like
Oh
there's been
yeah.
a million stories at this point, a million a year that come out about stuff like that happening.
Hmm.
So then, how Barstool come calling them?
So I was, like I said, friendly with a few people at Barstool, Kevin Clancy, Brendan Clancy, Feidelberg. I had met them in real life before. And I was a fan of KFC Radio and Mail Time because I really liked Kevin and Brendan because they were from the New York area and they reminded me a lot of like guys I grew up with, my dad, his friends, like the kind of stuff they talked about. It kind of resonated with me, and I liked how they talked about New York and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of how I got in. I became friendly with them, and over time they started like inviting me on to do stuff with KFC Radio. And then once the New York office came around, I was invited to do stuff all the time. And then I got to meet Rhea and Fran, and I worked with them all the time. And so really, I just was kind of, now that I look back on it, I guess I was just networking, but also making friends with these people.
Mhm.
And it at the same time helped me with my own thing. So it was just, I think it was a lot of right place, right time. But I did have to wait a long time for it to finally pay off,
What year? What
long
year
time.
did you start?
So I met everybody like 2014, 2015. And then the office opened 2016, which was great. I might have even met them earlier than that, to be honest. All through college, I was a Barstool fan. So, and tweeting at them and stuff like, like typical fangirl shit. And then once the New York office opened, that's when I started becoming like better friends with all of them, going out with a lot of people, meeting everybody, whatever. And I kind of hung around for a while, but I wasn't hired full time until fall of 2020.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that seemed so. You'd been around that world though for a long time. Like I
Yeah,
feel
like
like
5 years at least, maybe 6 or 7 depending on, like, how far back you take it, but yeah, it was a long time. There were a few times where I was going to come in full time and it kinda fell through. Like, I was supposed to at one point, I was maybe gonna be the 3rd chair on KFC Radio, and then when Asa Akira was leaving, and then John and Kevin decided they wanted to just keep it themselves, and then, there was another time where I was just gonna like be hired, and I had a meeting with Dave, and some of the stuff I wanted to do wasn't popular at the time. Like I wanted to do like drinking stuff, and at the time I was like 24, 25, like it wasn't even, you know. and I was still partying and still doing that kind of shit. And it at the time just didn't really fit with the brand. And then, of course, as years go by, Brianna Chicken Fries made a whole brand
Yeah, I
out
was
of
gonna say
exactly
that
that.
seems.
So
Yeah,
it's a lot of like, right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time. But eventually it all came out in the wash, I think.
I feel like everyone that's gotten hired here had a stars aligned moment for them,
Hmm.
whether it's a video going viral, like in my case, or Dave stumbling across somebody's blog. Like I feel like that's the cool part of Barstool is the randomness to it, in which
Hmm.
people get hired. But it's cool that you were kind of connected to the world for a minute. You've been open about not being a huge sports fan. Was there any
Yeah.
hesitation about being a part of a sports media company? Like was or maybe not hesitation, but was there any fear of like you might get thrust into a position you're not comfortable with?
I think with that, it always, to me, because I was such a fan of like KFC radio and I knew that they did have parts of them that weren't sports centric, that there would be a place that I could fit somewhere. Maybe it wasn't at that time. Maybe it was once they got bigger, like when churning came around and they ended up hiring all these people and expanding more into entertainment and pop culture than, just primarily sports stuff. I think that it that made me a lot more optimistic. Like once I started hiring more girls also, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, now I can, like, this is great. Once Erica got hired, I was like, oh my God, amazing. Like this is going to be huge. And it was, of course, but no, I wasn't worried about becoming a part of it because it's not that I'm not a sports fan. I'm just not as interested in it. But if ever I'm told like you got to watch this game or you got to do this, do that, I'm so fine with that. Like I really like March Madness. When we do the March Madness stuff, I like basketball. Basketball is, out of all the sports, basketball is one that I will always watch. I'll always like, I know the rules. Like it's fun for me to watch. And I just don't have any like allegiance to any teams. So it'd be kind of fair weather for me to suddenly like decide to be a sports fan for a certain team and whatever. And I don't, I'm not challenging any other fandoms and things like that. I don't want to get involved in that mess because I think
Yeah.
that's a mess on its own.
Yeah.
But when I get the opportunity like March Madness to go apeshit for a team that I want to, then it's really fun. So I always thought like there will be moments like that where I can participate in the sports stuff on a certain level, but that's not why they would bring me in. Like they
Right.
wouldn't expect that from me. So I wasn't really deterred or worried about it at the time.
Yeah, I might have misworded that because it's in general like it's not that you're not a sports fan, it's that you don't have the psychotic levels of fandom that somebody like me has. Like
Right, 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 right.
there's varying degrees to it. Like there's the me and the
Totally.
Franks of the world and the Jerrys of the world, and then there's just like the casuals.
Completely.
Yeah,
I don't think that I think that your question was spot on though. I think that you're right. Like I am not a sports person and this, especially at the time, was a sports company. So it's kind of like, how do you fit in? But eventually I think it's turned into something different that has lent itself to, for me to fit myself in.
yeah, and I mean, I was following Barstool going back to when I was in college, and I
Mhm.
never would have expected that outside the Detroit Tigers, the number one thing at the company people want to talk to me about is the trivia tournament. Like that's the
Mhm.
biggest. Like it just shows how much the company's grown and how much things
Definitely.
things have changed and how much how versatile we've become. No, I don't want to spend a ton of time asking you about Taylor Swift stuff
Okay.
because
Fair. So fair.
well the reason for it's not that I know that part of you. I've seen
Mhm.
that part of you in content. But it is now like that's your fastball for sure. Like that is the thing. Like Kelly Keegs is the Taylor Swift person at Barstool. Do you ever get tired of it at all? Like, is there ever a day where it's like not today?
I wouldn't say tired of it. I get very anxious to miss something important now versus before when as a casual fan, I could just, and I would say slightly more than casual. I'm not going to pretend like I was ever like years ago I was a casual fan, but then in the last 5 years or so, the transformation that Taylor Swift has done is so exciting to follow along with that it's become like this fun thing to talk about all the time. Gia and I have our show Taylor Watch, and we talk about it like it's a TV show. Like
Right.
that's how we phrase it. We're like, this is Taylor Watch. This is what happened this week in like the TV show of Taylor Swift. Like, and people are really resonating with it. And when it comes to like feeling tired of talking about it, I worry sometimes that people will think that I am like being over the top on purpose or that I'm not actually a real fan because all I want are clicks or whatever. And there are times, not with Taylor Swift, but with other things that I will play it up on purpose for clicks and things like that. But when it comes to Taylor Swift, my love of her music and her lyrics is so real that it doesn't bother me. And how could I complain if I get to, I get to talk about something I love so much? But it is worrisome that I'm not that I miss something or I don't cover it the right way. And another issue, I ran into this issue this week. Taylor Swift's dad got in trouble, or no, he didn't get in trouble. Somebody was accusing him of like accosting a paparazzi or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw the headline and I went, this is fucking bullshit. And I'm not even going to give it the time of day. Taylor wouldn't want anyone to see a headline like this. Like, I'm not even blogging it. Like, fuck this. And we will talk about it on Taylor Watch, which we did. But then when we're talking about it on Taylor Watch, Gio was like, oh yeah, John Rich blogged it. And I was like, of course. Like, the one thing I didn't want is that to be on our website because Taylor's just paying attention. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want Barstool Sports to be the ones like feeding the rumors. And so I can't tell. And that's hard for me because like the line of I need to do this for my job. And also I'm such a fan that I never want her to think that we're a part of the problem. So I would say that's my only real issue when it comes to like covering Taylor. But I cover her in the same way that anybody would cover a sports team. And I think that people really they don't like to make that comparison, or they try to like be obtuse to that. But if I were this passionate about like the Red Sox or the fucking Jets or something, like people wouldn't say shit. So that's just the mindset you have to have about it.
I sent out this tweet one time. I think it was you had come back from a Taylor Swift concert and you were doing a recap and you were crying. And
Oh yeah.
I had this moment, this epiphany. You talk about Taylor Swift the way that I talk about baseball, where you are so passionate about it, it will work you up to literally to a point of tears. And it's one of those things that of course, there's probably going to be a large percentage of the population that doesn't get it, but like a large percentage of the population doesn't get like sports fandom obsession either. Like
Totally.
and to me, I think it might be a generational thing too with her. Cause like when they were showing her during the playoff run for the Chiefs, like I didn't care. I'm watching football. I like
Right.
Taylor Swift. Like, but to me, Taylor Swift is one of those people that's never not been super famous. Like I was in like probably fourth, fifth grade when she like burst onto the scene. And like she's just always been there. I guess I want to ask a Swiftie this. What happened where she went from like A-list star to the most famous person in the world? Like, was it her re-recording her music? Was it the COVID like folklore stuff? Because in the last few years, there was like a noticeable shift.
I think it's a little bit of all of those things. I think that that the surprise album drops, Folklore and Evermore, which both came out within like 4 months of each other, complete surprise. Nobody knew anything, and they both are like some of her best albums. Like clearly, high quality work, the lyricism, like everything about it is just fantastic. Totally different sound than her usual stuff for the most part. So that brought a lot of people's eyes on her. And then the re-recording of her album, I think, or of all of her albums, and the issue with Scooter Braun buying up her masters and kind of holding it over her head and all that bullshit, it gave people an opportunity to root for her and to back her up in a way that I think a lot of people didn't have her back years ago when she was accused of lying about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian when they like set her up, with a phone call and released the phone call and all this bullshit. People can look up that story. I don't need to tell it, but like it's at that time people were so vile to her. Nobody believed her. Everybody thought that she was annoying. She's this, she's that. Everyone's talking about it. The media was worse than ever. This is like 2016, 2017 time. And then she came out with her Reputation album, and it was finally a version of her where people were like, okay, she doesn't give a fuck, and she's just going to be rich and she's going to be talented and we're going to have to deal with it. And she's kind of kept that energy the whole time. And I think it's especially for, Taylor Swift is 1 year older than I am. And it sometimes feels weird to be like, I look up to someone like Taylor Swift, but there's no other way to say that I just admire her perseverance, her confidence, everything about her. And I think that it's, she's a great role model for young girls. She's a kindred spirit for women who feel like they've been wronged or, not listened to or something. And it just kind of, she makes us all feel good inadvertently. And so how could anybody hate that?
I also feel like there's something to be said about somebody that started so young and has had kind of like zero fuck ups, like it or whatever fuck ups were just minor like relationship stuff. Like
Totally.
she was hosting SNL when she was like 19. Like and
I know,
and
it's crazy. Her first
yeah,
album. Sorry, this thing is like so weird.
no, you're good.
Hold on. Okay, fine. I don't know what happened halfway through. No, yeah, she's been around forever. Like her first I'm trying to think how old she was for her first album. Maybe like 17, 18. Like she was really young for her first album, and we've watched her grow and change as an artist and go through all of these things. And I think that a lot of people still view her as that young like country star that just like
Yeah.
cries about the boyfriend that broke up with her and stuff. But it's really not the case anymore, and people just, they don't want to acknowledge her growth, and I think that's where people get stuck. And then once they give it a chance, they're like, oh yeah, okay, this wasn't so bad after all. And it's like, okay, well, you talked all that shit, do you take it
Right.
back now? Like, it's just kind of, it's very frustrating to see. But I think the fame for sure stems from now people are recognizing how talented, how famous the group, the people that are behind her, everyone is supportive. Like, it's almost like if you don't support Taylor Swift at this point, it's a red flag. Why? Like,
Yeah.
what's your problem? Like, for what?
Yeah. I also feel like it's just natural on the internet, especially to just hate on what's super popular. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, that's just
Totally.
especially with someone who's been famous for that long.
Hmm.
And I think especially that kind of leads me to the next question with her to say infiltrating football is such a dumb way to put. She watched the
Hmm.
fucking games. Like it's not,
Right.
but
Yeah.
they turned it into this like, Taylor Swift is now a part of the NFL shit. Having you picked a good time to jump on the bandwagon there is watch them kind of go through the Super Bowl. Do you like are you a bigger football fan now than you were prior to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey?
I would say I'm about the same. It was still, that to me was another thing, like having to watch football because Taylor Swift was going to be there was a thing that I
Mhm.
was like, I wish I didn't have to do this. Not because I don't, it's just not, I don't want to spend my entire Sunday watching
Yeah.
football. That's just not my thing. It's not for me. But I would watch, the Chiefs game. The worst thing was the first game that she went to. I was so convinced that there was no way she was going to go to a game that I was like out to lunch, and I had my phone in my bag, like not paying attention, just trying to, decompress on the Sunday before like a big week ahead. And I, checked my phone 20 minutes later, and I had like a million text messages, calls from Dave Portnoy, like all the shipping, like Taylor Swift at the game. And this is the first time. And she's dating Travis Kelsey, confirmed. Like, this is happening. And ever since then, I've had like a pit in my stomach anxiety about missing something that she's done to cover it for Barstool Sports. And if she didn't get involved with sports, I don't think it would have been a big deal if I didn't like say exactly what she was up to
Mhm.
at 4:30 on a Sunday if she was doing something else. Like, but because of the sports crossover, it became a bigger deal. And I think that football is really fun. I understand the fandom. I know why people get hype about it, and I know that people feel, they have that nostalgia, that family feel, all of that. My dad's a big football fan. My mom likes it too. Like, we grew up that way. But unless it's a really exciting game like the Super Bowl, or even those like the AFC Championship, the NFC Championship, those are fun games to me. But
Mhm.
regular season games, I'm like, oh, enough.
Yeah, no, I get especially if somebody who's not a huge sports fan to have to spend your Sunday like we we have an awesome job, but there are those moments where
Totally.
it's like, what am I doing? Where
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah,
I
and again,
love
all this sounds like I'm complaining, over nothing. God, twist my arm, whatever. But it's hard to find a moment to unplug when you have to be plugged in all the time.
yeah, no, I get that. That I do have to ask about this about the because people would crucify me if I didn't about the
Oh,
Barstool radio stuff.
oh, okay. I
Because
was like, what?
oh no, sorry, no, I didn't mean to scare.
No,
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 because look,
it's
in
fine.
general, the thing is, it's probably different from me having worked here. Like, so you and Francis were handpicked to co-host Barstool Radio.
Hmm.
Didn't work out. Dave cancels it. Like we see that all the time
Yeah.
here.
Hmm.
And then obviously Tate, who I do like and has an open invite to be on the show for the sake of objective journalism. Kind of went after you, not so to speak. He did. Um, and I guess now that it's the dust has settled a little bit in terms of like the some of what you said about not wanting to come on Fridays, and then he calls you out for not blogging on Fridays. Is there any part of that process that you look back on and regret?
I wouldn't say regret. Regret is not the right word. I'm still extremely frustrated with how a lot of that went down because I think a few things happened at once and it all got lumped into the same conversation, and it shouldn't have been. I think that radio itself wasn't good, and I don't think anybody was trying to pretend like it was. We had just had that conversation with Dan Big Cat, a few days prior being like, we need to find our groove. We need to figure out who has chemistry with who. And then we want to turn it into this big, this kind of show with these things. All week I've been talking about how we wanted to change up the show. I said it in front of Dave. I said it, nobody stopped me. Everybody said, absolutely change up the show, include the drama when necessary, which was always the intention. And that was that. When it came to the Tate drama, that is where I went wrong, not thinking that that was a big enough deal to talk about on radio. I thought, this guy, who is this guy? He has turned something I said on radio that wasn't serious into like a hit piece. I don't know him. And he's now proven that I don't like post blogs on Fridays. It's frustrating to me that that's now translated into Kelly doesn't come into work on Fridays. Kelly doesn't work on Fridays. Every fucking tweet I write, oh, it's not Friday. It's almost Friday. It like that bothers the shit out of me because it's just like, I know that people are just saying it for the sake of saying it, and it's just not true in any way. And that bothers the fuck out of me a lot. Apart from that, not being able to figure out that Tate's blog was worth talking about on Monday wasn't me trying to not talk about it. It was me being like, what is this fabricated bullshit? And should we talk about it? And the resounding response was, no, who cares? And during the show, while it was happening in real time, no one told me what was going on outside of the room. Like everybody that was in that room was just sitting there, we're talking. And again, trying to find our groove, trying to find some chemistry. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were just at the championship the night before. I was like, oh, 1 hour quick, we'll fill it with some Taylor Swift. We'll just try to chit chat and like get a good groove going, thinking nothing of the Tate thing. And then once we got out of there, the whole office was like looking at us like we were dead men walking. And I was like, what? And Clemmer came out to me and was like, why didn't you talk about it? And I was like, why would we talk about it? It was like dumb as fuck, I thought. And then when Dave canceled the show, clearly that was wrong. It was the wrong thing to do, was not talk about it. What then bothered me is that it turned into Kelly ruined the show. Kelly doesn't work on Fridays. Kelly is lazy, this, that, whatever, all spun from a narrative based on a joke that I said on radio. And that rubs me the wrong way still to this day. And I'll have to interact with Tate at some point. We'll have to talk, whatever. I think that going out of your way to create something out of nothing to get a job and get attention is the wrong way to go about anything. And he might be flying high for a while, but I can't foresee positive responses internally to that kind of behavior. So, I mean, he'll have to make it on his own without, tearing everybody down. And if I was an easy target, I was an easy target. But I just, that whole thing, it bothers me. It bothers me very much. Doesn't bother me that Barstool Radio got canceled. I'm fine with that. I think that it was kind of doomed from the start. I think that the lack of communication on the whole thing really fucked us. And I think that, people don't want to say it. People don't want to like cop to that. They say that I won't take any accountability for it or whatever. But the only accountability I should and need to take is the fact that I thought that something was less important than it was. Yes, facts. But that's, what am I supposed to do about that now? That's it. It got canceled. It's over. But that doesn't mean that I need to prove myself as an employee, as a worker, as a person in this company, just because I thought that something involving me wasn't important enough to talk about on radio. And nobody stopped me halfway through to tell me otherwise. So
yeah, so
I don't know.
It's taking accountability for what happened with the show. But I think that like your stipulation is I shouldn't have to take accountability for like my work ethic or what people are.
Which I took accountability for not recognizing that it was something that I needed to talk about immediately. I said, I can't believe I missed this. I still to this day don't think that like this became a bigger thing because I didn't mention it. I think if I did mention it on radio, it never would have been a conversation. Nobody would have given a fuck. It would have been over. I would have been like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Yes, I don't often post on Fridays because pop culture things don't happen on Fridays. It's usually a news dump of bullshit. And why I'm not going to force a blog. Blogging isn't my number one job. It's also not required of us to blog every single day. Like you do other things on certain days. Like tomorrow is a Friday. I'm shooting a video all day tomorrow. I'm not going to blog tomorrow. So like, and people are going to be on my dick about it. And it's like, that doesn't, if something happens, yes, I'll write a blog, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I got to get that blog out today. We have monthly quotas, not daily quotas. So I think people need to understand that as well.
Yeah, I guess in Tate's defense, I'd been reading his blogs for a long time because he's a big sports fan, so I'd read his stuff before. But also, I mean, a lot of people would argue, and I talked to KB about this a little bit. I think it's something of a misconception sometimes that like how get your foot in the door here is often you start beef with people.
Hmm. I think sometimes, but like, what's another example of that? Getting your foot in the door.
Well, maybe getting your foot in the door, but I feel like I could probably think of a half a dozen to a dozen instances of really popular pieces of content that involve confrontation or fight.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. I think that when you're already involved heavily in content and you know these people and you know how they're going to react and you know what's going on, if you want to start beef and you want to like create an issue, 100%. I don't know this person at all. We've never spoken, still have never spoken directly. And I thought it was ridiculous for him to turn something that I said in jest into like his crusade to being hired full time when he could have been hired full time this whole time. Like if you wanted to do if you wanted to be a part of it, then you could have been a part of it. You didn't have to do it this way. And a lot of people will compare it to me and the Mean Girls. And I think that what they don't remember, a lot of people have revisionist history about that. Those girls knew I was writing that blog. And everyone in the company knew I was writing that blog. I wrote it in the middle of this office. We all talked about it. Like it wasn't like it was a blindsided situation. I knew those girls very well. It had been the topic of conversation for weeks how they had been putting out stupid like clickbait videos. And I wrote that blog. And then their response was to act like they had no idea what was coming. And that's how they played it. And they made me look bad. And I apologized immediately. I said, let's talk offline. It went too far. I had the social people having me make videos about it because they thought everybody was in on the content. And then it went so much more viral than it needed to go. And that was crazy. This situation, I think, really is not the same. Like I just I don't think it's the same. Do you think so?
I think there's differences. I understand why people see similarities. I think that people view you as a person who, like, I mean, you put your opinions out there. You do. I mean, you're a good
Hmm.
writer because of that. And I think people, to a certain extent, view it as a dish it out but can't take it type of thing. With
Right,
Tate,
which again bothers the fuck out of me because in what world am I not taking this? Like how am I not this is my response. My response is he's a fucking asshole who made something out of nothing. What else? What other response is there to take? Excuse me, Tate, let me get on my knees and fucking kiss your feet. Like, no, that's not, that's the exact opposite of how I feel about this situation. And if there's one thing I'm not, it's fake. And I feel like I can't, I'm not going to pretend like I think that what he did is similar in any way to what I did if I don't think it.
I also think with the Mean Girls thing, what that became bigger than it was because I think at some point, I don't know when, you and Tate probably for content will have a conversation about this. Like, well, whether
Well,
it's
it's
on a
like forced, it's going to be forced upon me. He can't
yeah,
come to New York by himself. He needs daddy to hold his hand. So whenever he and Dave show up is when we'll have the conversation. But again, it'll be what other response can I have? I'm not allowed to like be as upset as everybody else because that then all of a sudden I can't handle it. I can't take it. I'm a bitch. I'm this.
mhm,
I'm that. Get the girls at a Barstool. Like that's what it turns into, and that's just unfortunately when it was me and the Mean Girls, it was girl on girl crime, and it was a little different. But with this, it's not quite the same in the way of like I have nowhere to go. There is nothing for me to do to change the minds of these people who have decided to blindly believe a person who made up a lie to get attention. There's
yeah.
nothing I can do.
I also think the difference with the Mean Girl thing on their part was that they didn't talk about it with you. You gave them the opportunity to be like, let's
Yeah,
discuss this. Let's talk about this in the office. I think that was a mistake on their part, and it actually led to things getting worse. I feel like for both parties.
100%. Well, I tried
Yeah,
to talk to them. I tried to talk to them on camera, but then I also tried to talk to them off camera. I like texted them on on the side, being like, "I know you girls are upset with me. This has gone completely out of control. I would love to talk. Be as mad at me for as long as you want. I'm so sorry. Let's talk." And they just never did. And then I never saw Jordan again. Jordan was in the office in and out. We never spoke and we never will. I'm not really a fan to begin with, but I did see Alex out at like another event, one of the out and about events, and we were fine, hugged, fine. How are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. You know, but she's a different kind of person. I think that, and I said this when everybody was waiting for their response. I did the whole media tour. I went on KFC radio. I went on the Yak. I went wherever and talked about this. And I thought it was going to be like a WWE wrestling thing and they were going to show up and I was one person, they were two, they were going to show up and be like, fuck your shit. We have all these views. You're an asshole. And that is how it would be because that's how they acted towards their haters all the time. And that was the implication when I tweeted at them and said, I'm writing a blog. And Jordan said, can't wait. Like it was just so different. And like I said, immediately when it got out of control and people were starting to take it way too seriously and like really pile onto them is when I said like, hey, this has gone too far. I'm sorry. We can make a plan moving forward, whatever. And they weren't into it at all. And to me, that almost showed that they like didn't care enough to begin with. Like, I think they were halfway out the door anyway when that happened. That's how they were acting, you know? And so it just kind of was like, I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general with drama here, like the worst thing you can do is let it linger. Like you have an
Yeah.
issue, you talk about it on the air. Like that's an issue I run into with myself being a remote employee is that like I'm not like I'm not doing fucking press conferences in the offices. So it's like there's a lot of like unaddressed stuff sometimes where it's like I think that usually it's somebody has an issue with another person, they talk
Mm,
about it, like they move on. The fact that continued because it was left unresolved. Whereas I think for the most
exactly.
I think what's going to happen with you and Tay, and I, based on what you're saying, I can't imagine you guys are ever going to be friends, but I do
Yep.
imagine there will be a conversation that is made into content at some point that discusses this and in the long run kind of puts an end to the whole thing.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to be forced to have a conversation with him at some point. To me, he is exposed. I don't care how many videos he tweets about the high school girls he teaches. I don't care how many kids buy him gifts for being a good teacher, whatever. I know the kind of person he is, the kind of person that goes out of their way to do something like that. I know the kind of person you are. So there is nothing else that you can do or say that will make me think otherwise of him. If he were to say it to me like that, I don't care what he has to say, to be honest. I just know that he's not this big tough dog like he thinks he is. He saw an opportunity, ran with it, and that's all he's got. So if he, I wish him luck in all of his other endeavors, and good thing he's moving to Chicago. I don't want to have to pretend to be his friend every day, but I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think it was fucked up, and it's not again. It's not that I can't see the reasoning behind it. He saw the chance. He got pissed off. I'm grinding and out, sweating, teaching seventh grade kids, whatever. I wish I was living it up with everybody else in the Chicago office and like a blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to take the opportunity to, you know, shit on this girl that I work with who I've never met, who I don't know, who I have no idea what she actually does for work because he couldn't be any less in the circle of things that I do, and turn all the commenters against her. So it's like, fine, do that. If that's the only way that you can get a full-time job here, then power to you.
Yeah, and that the turn the commenters against you thing, that was going to be my next question because in general, like, okay, I pay attention to what happens here in the drama here, but like I don't really draw a lot of lines in the sand. Like I don't really feel a need to to pick sides. But as somebody who's cornered the market at this company on public freakouts, you wrote a blog about this whole thing. I think it was
Hmm.
called Kelly Keegs is ruining Barstool Sports, and I
Hmm.
read it, and it read like something that I would write. To be honest, there was a
Hmm.
lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of self loathing. I
Hmm.
guess. Do you still? That I got the line here. Dave wants us at each other's throats, and that's that. No time for friends, no time for fun, no time for positivity and supporting each other. Do you still feel that way?
I would say that, I mean, yes, but no. Like my number one thing, and I think a lot of people either forget or choose to ignore, is that I am a very sarcastic person. I'm an extremely dramatic person. I say a lot of things with intention and gusto that aren't necessarily a reflection of my true feelings. I think that in reality, I'm a lot more subdued. But when it comes to something like this, we're fighting back and forth. I'm getting harassed for a week straight online by these people who are calling me a fucking lazy piece of shit, like whatever. Then yeah, I'm going to say, all right, fine, hands up. No, we're not friends anymore. I don't want to talk to any of these people anymore. I've got my own friends being like, oh, Tate's not so bad. It's like, oh, really, bitch? Because I don't know. I'm getting buried over here, and I've been your friend for 10 fucking years. So what do you want to? What do you want? I'm talking about John Feidelberg right now, and yeah, I'm like, what? It's frustrating to me that sometimes when I will go out of my way to be supportive of everybody and do my best to be positive with people and make sure that we're all on the same page and not actively make people feel like shit unless they know what we're doing here. And uh and it's shocking when people are too afraid to like have your back when Dave says something. You know what I mean? Like Dave was like, Tate's funny, Kelly's delusional, this is what's happening, and whatever. And then all of a sudden everybody went radio silent. Behind the scenes, it's nonstop texts, calls, this, that, how are you, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then it doesn't come out in the wash, I guess. Like it's not the same online. And it's hard to explain, like, hey, it's way different behind the scenes than it is online because nobody wants to hear that. And I get pissed off when people go out of their way, and I bring up John because I got so mad at him like last week when he's going off being like, I'm a Tate guy now. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, I'm still trying to like wait one more week before people can pile the fuck on and be like, look, Kelly, all your friends hate you at work. And it's like, I know the reality is not that, but it sucks when the perception is that.
That
And
is,
and I
yes.
don't like when something's out of my control. I'm transparent about that. I don't like when things are not in my control. I don't like when I'm misunderstood. I've said this a lot, already on this show, and I am an arguer. So if you come to me and you're trying to tell me something that's untrue, I will argue against it until I'm blue in the face, and that's just how I'm made. I can't not do that.
The perception versus reality thing fucks with me so much because you get so many comments from people about the perception that in your own head you start to develop a new reality for yourself. Like shit,
Hmm.
like maybe everybody does hate me. Like maybe I am like
You get
being isolated.
paranoid. You get paranoid for sure, and
Totally.
I'm a very paranoid person in general, and I think that because I try so hard to support everyone and be friends with everyone and make them feel like they can call me with anything, that even if it's not work related and something more serious, I'm always there for them. And then to feel abandoned because people aren't bothered by they don't care enough. It's not in their immediate world. They don't see how heavy it is. They don't see what's going on. But me, I've got my dad sending me fucking New York Post articles being like, LOL, another one for the fridge. And it's like before I even saw it myself, and it's Dave Portnoy says Kelly Keegs is delusional, fired from Barstool Radio. Like I'm like, it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to manage, I think, mentally. and
Yeah.
uh and it's fine, you do it, you always do it. But then when your own friends are so fucking oblivious to what you're going through and just say shit to say shit, it's like, really, like you gotta, I just wish more people would treat me the way that I treat them, I guess,
For
if
sure.
that
No,
if that
I
makes sense.
understand that.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next, and it's honestly it's a question for you, but it's also a question something I deal with. How how were you able to kind of mentally work your way? I mean, you got your turn in the in the chamber. Like you
Yeah.
got it rough for a minute. How did you have you bounced back from that? Do you feel like you have? Was there a way that you did it? What was the kind of the process there?
Well, kind of like I said earlier, nothing will ever be as bad as that first time that I went viral. Like nothing will ever stack up to that. So, and if it ever does, then I know that like, then I might need some help. You know what I mean? Like that was a crazy thing. But the only thing it's done for me now is, it's discouraged me a little bit. It's discouraged me when it comes to putting out the stuff that I know I'm good at. And like, I have this newsletter. I haven't written one in a couple weeks because I'm like, nobody cares about this fucking newsletter. Like you start beating yourself up about it,
Yeah.
being like, why am I even bothering? No one cares. No one's looking at this. Like I'm an asshole. Like I can't believe I even thought this was a good idea. When in reality, like it still is a good idea. And I just need to get my own confidence back up in terms of like what I'm posting and what I'm doing. And it's not really, it's not something you want to do, posting yourself online while everyone hates you so much, because you just know that, like, I'll post a video of me drinking my tea in the morning. I'll be like, hey, I'm drinking my tea, Queen Anne, this is my favorite kind of tea. And the comments will be like, fuck you, bitch. Like, don't get or why do you even still have a job? Like, blah, blah, blah. This is fucking insane. Like, you're an idiot. And it's nothing new. Everybody gets it all the time. But when you know that it's coming, it almost like deters you from wanting to do it. And right
It
now, everybody hates me. The block's too hot, you know. Like I'm just trying to do what I need to do and get it done. I do my podcasts. I do Taylor Watch. We do Cutting Stems. And I just got to get my confidence back up for the newsletter again. I'll blog whenever, you know, again, the blog, I'm not worried about the blog, but it's like, yeah, it's hard to get your confidence back up in terms of posting stuff.
you become incredibly gun shy. Like I went about a
That's,
full
yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
until the last maybe 2 months. Like I just resorted to just blogging all the time because like I just don't feel great about like where my confidence is at with what I'm putting out. Like, and especially you're right, man. When you know it's coming, with no matter what you
Mhm.
post, it could be the most like
It's nothing. Yeah.
I'm interviewing you right now. I'm drinking a Coke Zero out of this glass. I guarantee you, I'm going to get multiple comments of people asking me like if I've relapsed, like in the middle of this interview.
Right.
It's just like
Right.
it's just like it sucks that like it's kind of what you have to expect at this point. And I think no matter what, like it's only human nature that at some point there's something that somebody's going to say to us in content that is going to strike a nerve. Like, and we can't all
Totally.
have the thickest skin in the world. Like there are things that people have said. I'm sure you feel the same way about what things people have said about you, where you can laugh at it, you can make a joke about it, you can let it roll off your back,
Definitely.
and then every
Mhm.
so often it'll just be that one thing where it's like, okay, I kind of wish you wouldn't have brought that up, and you
Mhm.
can't. It's hard for you to clap back because then it makes it seem like you're being super sensitive. But in reality, I
Right. Then
think
it's like, well, clearly you care so much. And it's like, there are things that I care about and there are things that I don't care about. But one thing I do care about is questioning my character, questioning my loyalty, my you know, drive, my work ethic. Those things will always bother me. And there's nothing I can say to do it. Like people are like, ha ha, this is bothering you so much because it's true. It's like, no, it's bothering me so much because it's not true. But all you want to do is shove it down my throat that it is, and it feels like you're screaming in a glass box, and it's very frustrating, and you just have to wait for it to break at some point, you know? Like there is no way to work through it because the people online are not your friends.
yeah, yeah,
So you just have to do it on your own.
yeah. You know, I'll end on something a little bit lighter because you had one of my favorite rants in the history of Barstool about I don't know 6 7 months ago,
Mm,
where it was a conversation about Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and you went off on it on a video, which actually inspired me to write that movie theater blog that pissed everybody off. But I'm this is just a weird tangent I want to go. I'm incredibly fascinated by Tom Cruise. I think he's the
mhm.
strangest human being that's ever
Are you a
existed.
fan? I forget if you're a fan or not.
I
Are you more on
I
my side where I'm like, he's a freak?
I love the fact that he is so committed to making movies. I think that's
Yes,
great. I think that
sure.
is actually something that's inspiring. Very few people love doing what they do the way that he loves making movies. He is also a fucking crazy person. And if you ever watch, and I watch this interview once, a few times a year. That fucking Good Morning America thing they did with Matt Lauer, where he was talking about the history of psychiatry, and he
Mhm.
came across like a complete lunatic. Have you ever seen that?
Keep saying it. It might jog my memory.
It was about Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields had come out and said
Okay.
that was dealing with postpartum depression and that
Uh-huh.
antidepressants helped her like in recovery. And then Tom Cruise said like, I'm a Scientologist. I don't believe in a chemical imbalance. Antidepressants do no good. Like I've studied the history of psychiatry. Ritalin is now a street drug. Like, and he's just screaming, eyes wide open, like he's like Patrick Bateman, just
Saying
yelling at
crazy
Matt.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he's an enigma, but I found, yeah, I can you separate art from artist at all, or when you watch his movies, you're like,
I mean, yes, I can separate art from artist, but when it comes to Tom Cruise, like I just don't really, I'm not really a fan of a lot of his movies to begin with. I never was like, oh my God, I've got to go see the new Mission Impossible. I got to go see Top Gun. Like I am interested. I'll see them if they're on or someone else is like, oh, let's watch this movie, like whatever. I saw Mission Impossible 3 in the movie theaters because my dad wanted to go and he brought me. And so like that, you know, but apart from that, I am not a big fan of his like personality. So to me, whenever I watch him in movies, it's like the acting is so obvious to me because I
hmm,
know the kind of person that he is. And so it's
yeah,
like, yeah, you're a good actor because you're acting completely different than you are as a person. But it almost comes because I know it's so different, it like somehow translates to fake to me, which I know is the exact opposite of what people will say. And I'm sure the Tom Cruise heads will come for me on that. But like, it's just, I don't know. You're right in that he's an enigma. I just think that it's wild how many problematic things he says and does, and how everybody is still like, yes, Tom Cruise, like Hollywood's darling. I'm like,
Yeah,
he literally said antidepressants are fake and Brooke Shields should have dealt with her postpartum on her own. Like, that's
yeah,
crazy.
I
Like,
know.
what do you
Yeah,
mean, dude? But like, people just keep giving him money, you know?
it's like an athlete who keeps getting in trouble off the court, but yet is putting up 40 points a night and everyone just forgets about it. Like, it's just
Yeah,
it is insane the number of things that, like, you could go back to. I mean, he obviously clearly has a super good, like, PR team that sweeps a lot of
sure.
this shit. But, yeah, I mean,
Totally.
I I go back and forth with it because, like, I Top Gun: Maverick blew me away, and it was in
Mm,
large part because, like, he was so committed to that. Like, I didn't really care for the first Top Gun,
mhm.
that much, but I find him insanely fascinating. And I was doing a little bit of research because I saw they're remaking American Psycho, and I looked up an
Oh, I
interview with.
saw that too. Did you see the sorry to interrupt you. I
No, go
just before I forget. Did you see that somebody said something along the lines of like if we're remaking this movie, it needs to be with Allison Williams and it should be like Allison Williams, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it should be like if they're gonna do like a reimagination of it, it should be like her as Patrick Bateman, but like a woman and like this psychotic girl shit. I would die for that. Allison
Ha-
Williams is so like crazy like that, you know?
have
Anyway,
you
sorry,
seen
keep going.
that video that Margot Robbie did where she parodied American Psycho?
Yes, that was good too.
Yeah, I could see her doing that, but I bring it up because uh Christian Bale said his two biggest inspirations when playing Patrick Bateman were Tom Cruise and Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because he would watch. That's the other thing with Tom Cruise that makes me laugh. You'll watch these interviews where he laughs at everything,
Mhm.
and but there's like this
Well, he's
empty.
it's like crazy. Like it's
Yeah,
not have you rewatched I rewatched kind of recently, maybe when I made that video. Him having the interview with Oprah where he jumps on the couch,
yeah,
she's in love or whatever. That interview, like at the time, I remember watching it in real time. I watched Oprah every day, and I remember watching it in real time and being like, "Oh my god, like he's this is crazy. He's so in love with his wife. Like, oh my god, nuts." And then it was headline news for 2 weeks, and it was talk soup. It was everywhere. And now watching it back, I'm like, how did they not call the police? Like
yeah,
this is really nuts, actually, and some crazy behavior. So I don't know. But
yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with like, um, I think a lot of people are in bed with Scientology. I think that it's
Oh
just
yeah, it's half of
if
Hollywood.
he
Yeah,
if he were like if that were not like if not as many people were involved with that, I think that he would have been canceled a long time ago. But I think because there's a lot of like underground bullshit going on, that he'll keep rising to the top no matter what.
if you ever want to get disappointed, go online and look at the list of people in Hollywood who are Scientologists. Like, oh, you'll go through and be like, fuck,
I
Elizabeth
know
Moss. I like her.
Elizabeth Moss was a tough one. That was a hard
Yeah,
loss
yeah.
for me. Yeah,
Um,
I
to
love
where
her.
I think it was like a decade ago where Will Smith had to come out and be like, "Look, we're not fucking Scientologists, all right? People got to stop saying that." Like he was
Yeah.
tired of.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
what a like bad stank on you. Nobody wants to be called a Scientologist. Like
yeah.
that's crazy shit. That's a crazy. Is it religion? I guess I don't even know what you would call it at this point. I feel like it's more than religion. It's a cult, but
Yeah. Well, if
that's
I
what
end
they
up
say.
murdered, if I end up murdered after this interview is uploaded, you'll know it was the Church of
Mm.
Scientology that.
I've been talking shit about Scientology for a while now, and they have yet to find me. So
Okay.
yeah,
I
same
hope.
same vibe. If I
hope
turn up dead somewhere, it's probably It's either Scientology or it's Ohio State. One or the other.
so, um, thank you, Kelly, for coming
Of
on today. I
course. Thanks
appreciate it.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Hope I don't disappoint. I know people probably won't like what I have to say about Barstool Radio, but again, I can't. I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend I don't feel the way I feel.
As long as
But
they listen, right?
I guess so. Yeah. If
Yeah.
they're watching, then I win.
All
So
right, for sure. Thanks so much.
of course,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, interview over. I don't know what you guys will think of that, but I was very proud of that. I really appreciated Kelly being open. This is with the Barstool personalities. This is what I want this show to be. I want it to be something where people can open up and talk. I somewhat apologize to her because I felt like I ambushed her with some of the questions about Barstool Radio, but I had to be addressed, right? Like people would have called me crazy if we didn't talk about it. Really good conversation. I appreciate her coming on, and yeah, episode 8 now. We're 4 or 5 weeks into this, man. Time flies. As of now, we do not have a guest booked for Tuesday's episode. I am trying to lock down Max Clark, Tigers' first round pick from a year ago. By the time this is uploaded, I'll know who the next guest is going to be, but I'm recording these like a week out, so can't quite tell the future yet. But for the time being, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment, get the watch hours up. Linktree in the description, both on YouTube and Rumble. You'll find the links to every platform your heart desires. We got Apple Podcasts. We got Spotify. We got Google Play. All of that and more. Really appreciate the support. I really appreciate Kelly there. That was fantastic. And we'll be back next week with 2 more episodes. The train's rolling. I like where we're going. All right. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Peace and happiness.
I'm just a devil with no spare soul.